Welcome to the Growth Whisperers, where everything that we talk about is building enduring great companies. My name is Brad Giles, and I'm in Perth, Australia. Today, I'm joined by Kevin Lawrence, who's in Vancouver, Canada. Hello, Kevin. How are things today?
Good, Brad. You know, I realized on the show, I think things are almost always good. That's because I think they are. I'm not making it up. Yeah, things are great. We're in our winter. Life is good. Good things happening in the business. Surrounded by great people. It's a wonderful journey.
What if I put it to you that the reason that things are good is that because you've implemented a one-page plan that works?
Well, I would agree with you. I've got a one-page plan for my firm. I've got my own version of a one-page plan called a master plan out of my book, Your Oxygen Mask First, that I run for my world, which is for my work, for me, myself as a human, and for my life, which is my family and my friends and my community. So I got a couple of solid one-page plans, and damn, they're good. They sure help keep me focused on the stuff that matters most.
So don't take this as a compliment by any means, but perhaps you keep saying when asked how things are good, it's by way of intent. It's like you've planned it out.
It is.
Yeah.
It's not fluke.
No,
it's not luck. It's a lot of damn hard work, spending time focusing and refocusing and thinking and evaluating and iterating and all that good stuff that we do with our clients. I mean, yeah, I do it myself. It's constantly iterating and trying to make better choices.
In the history,
and I know you do this, and I know you do the same.
In the history of segues, that could be one of the better segues, I've got to say.
Should we bottle that one up and use it again?
Yeah, that's a cracker.
You know why it worked? Because we weren't even trying. And that's why it segued so well.
You'd think after 138 episodes that we'd be able to stitch something together that made some kind of sense. All right, so
we blew our cover. We just, instead of just going with it, we called it out. That was funny. That was awesome. All right,
good. All right. So here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Many companies have a business plan. In fact, I'd say that most companies perhaps potentially have some kind of business plan, but some plans work better than others.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Some plans work better than others. So if you have your life and perhaps your savings and your energy and your focus invested in a business, perhaps you're interested in why some plans work better than others. Yeah, like it's a sensible, curiosity perhaps. So the point here is that focus matters, okay? And getting a business plan that produces the results that you need and want is something that's worthy of effort.
So let's play a game right now on the spot. We didn't practice this. So if you were to pick one phrase to describe why some business plans are better than others, what phrase would you choose to answer the question? Why are some business plans notably better than others?
They evolve over time with the central logic and experience.
Okay. They evolve over time with a central logic and experience. I like that. So what I was going to say, and I'm going to upgrade my answer because of yours, but what I was going to say is that they are simple and potent. But I would change it to they're simple, potent, and continually iterate.
Yeah.
Very similar thing, really, because we're born like at the end of the day. I've seen these business plans, and some of them are beautiful, but they're almost impossible to follow.
Yeah,
it's too complex. It's too much, and because people don't reference them that often, they don't constantly improve them. So they're like stagnant on a shelf. I'm exaggerating. People don't use shelves, they use hard drives more these days. But at simple terms or basics, they're just too damn hard to follow. And it's hard when it's hard for people to follow, it's hard to execute and stay focused on it.
one of the things that we find really not like, it's not we can't overcome it, but it's challenging, is changing people's mindsets. Like, I've got literally a workshop
Mhm.
tomorrow. First, we did an initiation about 90 days ago, and we've got a workshop tomorrow. And the challenge in this team, the thing that the theme is, like, done and won, right? So why, so we've built a plan, like, why is
Oh,
everything not completely different? Like, why has it not changed the whole world and universe? And it's
yeah.
like, it's a fallacy.
It's dangerous thinking.
Yeah.
It's like, we went somewhere for a vacation once, therefore we're going to go to that same place every time the rest of our life. And some people might like that. But business changes and iterates. And you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. It doesn't work. And in our world, we like to see companies iterate every 90 days. I just had one of the companies that I've done some work with over the last 6 months. I normally don't jump in these days and drive strat planning anymore. My team does those, and I just do more CEO coaching and some of the high level strategy stuff. And but this company, I know the CEO. He said, "Hey, can you please come help us for a bit?" So I'm helping him, but one of his team said, "Well, do we need to still have a 2-day quarterly strategy?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like we've barely stabilized the. I know you're laughing. We're not even, we haven't even stabilized the patient. We have a shape of our strategy and we have an execution plan. And yes, we got a plan for next year, but we're still figuring stuff out. We got so much more iterating to do. And if we try and do it all in a day, we're going to be rushed. We're not going to have enough think time, and we're more likely to we will come up with a less intelligent plan.
But do
Brad,
you
you
know
were
how many
laughing.
emails those people have? They're busy people. Why would they?
Yeah, I don't freaking care. I don't care. We need 2 days. And if you want me to help you, if there's a way to do it, I ain't deviating. For the size of company they are, I'm not deviating from it. And they were just checking, which is fine. I'm not judging them for it, but it takes time to do this. It's a discipline. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, well, if you're a high level football player, whether it's American football or European football, why do you need to practice? You already know the game. Why don't we just show up an hour before the game and have a great game?
Or more to the point, so there's the practice bit, but it's also planning the game.
Yes.
So understanding who are we competing against this week? Who are their strong players? What are we going to do? Who are the weak players on our team? Who's still slightly injured? Like, what are we going to do different against their game plan? Like, all of those things constitute that constitutes the analogy that you're describing. Yeah, the practice is important, but it's the preparation for the work that needs to be done.
All of that.
It is what it is.
Jim Collins says it's, success is relentless execution of the boring basics within your hedgehog.
Yeah.
And I always remember a CEO I worked with in the US, and he's like 450 people. He goes, you know how long it took me to get the entire team to answer the phone within 3 rings when a customer, they're a professional service. Anyway, team to answer the phone within 3 rings all the time, understand the customer's needs, and get back to them within 24 hours. He goes, you know how long it took us to do that? 3 years to build it in. But that's the core of their business. Hello, Mr. or Miss Customer. What can I help you with today? Okay, fine. It's always complex. Let me understand it. Let me clarify it. I'll get back to you either today or tomorrow. And that level of service sets them apart from everybody else. Yeah. But it was an incredible amount of work. And it goes back to the 1-page plan. It was in their long-term strategy, the 3-year goals, to have those incredible service levels. And they had goals for the year. And then every single quarter, they ground it out and iterated and iterated and iterated every 90 days until they mastered it.
So the 1-page plan concept, business planning isn't new. It's been around a long time, of course. And building a business plan isn't new, but specifically what we're talking about here is the 1-page plan. So the 1-page plan concept actually came as I understand it, from General Electric. And so Jack Welch, who was the CEO, arguably, I think the most successful CEO ever, where he grew GE 4,000% over 20 years.
At
So
least he's known as that. Statistically, it's not necessarily true, but that's what he's known as.
according to some
Yes.
people, asterisks,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So,
Correct.
so,
But
so
a well-regarded CEO.
So a well-regarded CEO named Jack went to his training facility in Crotonville in the US. All of the best General Electric managers would come from all over the world, and they would learn from the best leaders and the best thinkers about business management and strategy. And they would build their business plans over the course of their time in Crotonville and take them back to wherever they come from in the world, right? And then Jack suddenly came to realize that all of these business plans that were getting built, that were thick and comprehensive and detailed,
and impressive,
seriously impressive, were not getting enacted. And so then he set the mandate: if it won't fit on one page, then it's not constituting a part of the business plan. You can have supportive arguments, but the business plan has to be on one page if it's coming out of Crotonville. And so that was, as I understand it, that was then that concept began to get popularized. And certainly for you and I, one of the areas that became popularized was through the book Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, which kind of adapted it into the mid-market space for mid-sized companies. And then has continued to evolve since, I guess, the early 2000s or late 1990s through all sorts of areas. But that's really where it came from. And it's stuck because it works.
It does. And it was interesting, when we took Rockefeller Habits and I, went and interviewed 50 CEOs that used it, and then went and wrote most of the book Scaling Up, the first version of it, which Vern then finished off in the books, Scaling Up. And when we interviewed those people and we talked about the one-page plan, they raved about it, because what they would consistently say is it keeps me and my team aligned around what's most important, from the culture to a high-level version of the strategy to our goals for 3 years, 1 year, and quarter. And people again and again loved that template and how it just made it easier to stay focused. And yes, there's a lot of information on a page, but it's a page. It's a document that doesn't get lost. And people, iterate it and get, make all kinds of confusing things out of it. But, the way I had it said to me is it's someone explained is like, it's like a very clear painting of a beautiful city. It's crystal clear and you understand what's going on, where a lot of business plans are like abstract pieces of art. It requires interpretation. Everyone's going to have an opinion and a view. And is that a cow, or is that a mountain, or is that a picture of a field, or is it a butterfly? Like, everyone's going to have an inspiration and a thought. We don't have time for that. No. We want a very literal painting that shows us what we're trying to, what it is that we're after, without a lot of interpretation. It makes it easier for people to stay aligned and stay focused.
So by bringing together the ideology, right, the values, the purpose, the BHAG, these concepts of the ideology, and then making them fit with the strategy, which is how we'll be different, and then making that fit with how we will execute across the 3, 1, and 90-day timeframes, we avoid having just a list of goals with different time horizons. Because people might think, a business plan, we're going to go together and we're going to set like some goals. Let's get to $100 million in revenue. That'll be cool. But there's nothing else that's in that goal setting instrument. Whereas the one-page plan, it connects the key components, the ideology, the strategy, and the execution all together.
All the stuff that you're about in one page. I remember, I was just thinking as you're talking, Brad, had a prof in school that allowed us to have all of our notes for a test on a piece of paper. Now, maybe they allowed us, or maybe we just made up little pieces of paper with notes. I don't remember at this point, but I'm going to go with that we were allowed to do it. I'm not sure. But either way, we all had little pieces of paper with notes of all the most important stuff to study for that exam. In many ways, that's what a one-page plan is. It's all the most important stuff in one place, so we don't lose it and we don't forget it. That's it. And it's like those little cue cards or cheat sheets that you have for certain pieces of technology sometimes have instructions. It's our master instructions for who we are, how we're going to win, who we're serving, and what we're going to do about it. Because at the end of the day, people build all these really cool models, and then they get lost and then they get forgotten.
Yeah.
So it's putting all your notes in a spot, in a structure that helps you to know what you're going to do about it. It's, I'm just thinking about company that I worked with that, they had a brilliant strat planning process. And as they grew and grew and grew, all of a sudden they started to think they graduated. And then they started getting real creative, and they started using some more innovative approaches, and they wanted to give people more autonomy. And anyways, long story short, they did create the autonomy. Unfortunately, they lost the results because people were getting focused on all kinds of things, and basically they lost the ability of having a central document with central, very clear, tangible goals to bring everyone's focus together. Yeah. And they just got distracted. And in many ways, it would be like being at a concert, and there's a performer on stage that everyone is seeing and paying attention to and focusing on. And it became like a couple of hundred different little concerts happening all at once in the same company, and it became messy and noisy and misaligned. Now we've been able to start to dial it back in again, but it's a basic discipline that to some degree isn't that exciting, but we can make it exciting. But it's generally just to keep people very, very focused, and it's a page. And I've even seen go ahead, Brad.
But it produces results. Right.
Consistent. It's a discipline.
Yeah, it produces results. So broadly, we're saying that like the team who build the plan don't fight the plan. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you got to get, it can't just be the CEO or the COO going off to the mountain, assuming the lotus position and then writing it all out. Right. Because the problem is that you'll bring it back to the team and they'll go, well, that doesn't make any sense. Or what are you doing that for? So the leadership.
Or if the team does follow you, you have different problems. If your team are that compliant and they just follow you, you don't have a very strong team.
So it's messy to build the right one-page plan that has a good fit. I say like a jigsaw, so that all of the components of a plan fit together like a jigsaw, and it's not just a bubble wrap plan. So when you get a box from Amazon and it's full of bubble wrap and it's got this tiny little thing in it, well, it's just filling up air. And so having something in a box on the one-page plan doesn't mean that it's going to make you succeed. Okay. It's got to have a fit, everything from ideology through to strategy, through to execution. It all fits together. It's built by the leadership team through a messy process that at the end produces the plan, and it aligns the plan and then gives you the tool to execute for the next quarter or the next year or 3 years.
Yeah. And this is you touch on something that I really love in that, Brad, is that the idea of this is to be so clear on where the company is going and what we have to do, that the executives and even their teams can then pick and have a lot more autonomy in picking their goals and what they're going to do to contribute to get there. And whether you do it as goals or OKRs, same concept, just different language, basically the same structure. But I love OKRs because it's very measurable goals, which they should be to start.
They should be, no matter what.
They should be, and a lot of people don't. But the point of it is that it creates more autonomy and accountability. Because when you do it well, we've got it done for the company, but then you have goals for each of the people in the room and their teams. So at the end of the day, I love it. I was doing a session down in the US a couple weeks ago. And interestingly, the CEO was sick and couldn't attend. And it was the annual meeting, 2-day strat meeting with the team. And the CEO was very, very sick. So I was able to run the whole 2-day meeting with zero input from the CEO. I talked to him the night before when he was sick. I just confirmed the numbers for the next 3-year time horizon.
Yeah.
But we got a one-page plan. We've been running it for 3 years. We know exactly what the strategy is clear. Everything is so clear. We went and did what I would consider at least A-grade work over 2 days with nothing from him. And then we showed it to him at the end. And he's like, this is great. Because because the one-page plan was so clear.
Yeah.
I already knew what the values were and the purpose and the BHAG. I knew the 3 to 5 year targets, which I got updated. We knew what we had to do in terms of our goals to get to the 3-year plan. The annual, we clarified, and then the annual goals were pretty obvious. And then we broke out quarterly, and then each executive in the room was able to set their own goals for the quarter without CEO input, because the input's already on the plan.
Yep.
And we've done so many cycles, it's tight and it ain't perfect, but it's an A grade plan that I, being in sync with the company, could guide it with great confidence, because I know all of those ingredients, and I know we know what works in this business and what doesn't, and what we need to do. Anyway, it's
So what
it's
about, sorry, Kev, what about people who butcher the plan? I mean, I remember I had a,
those people that they think they're real smart.
Yeah, there was I remember there was a leader that I knew, and he took the one-page plan and put it into Microsoft Excel at the time, and just removed many of the key components. So it was just basically a list of goals, and thought he'd done the job to be done, but didn't have any real insight into what it was. And, like, we've seen countless examples of coaches around the world or advisors who've taken some plans, the one-page plan, and they've butchered it, and they've made it their own because they want to make it their own, but not really understanding the significance and the interplay of all of the components that are in there and the depth that's really behind it.
Yeah, when you have amateurs try to reinvent a system, they're gonna mess up because they don't know what they don't know. And I've seen it. I was having a conversation today with a CEO about this very thing, and he wanted to implement a new system, and it's a system that I know a lot about. And he's got a proposal from a consultant to do, and he goes, "You know what? We're not going to spend the money right now, but we'll just kind of iterate it and find a way to make it our own over time." And I'm like, "No effing way you're going to do that." I said, "No." I said, "If you do it right. And if you do it right, you get the consultant to help you. So you do it right, because your team only knows enough to screw it up."
Yeah.
And by the way, I've seen the stuff that your team did on a similar implementation before, and it wasn't good enough. So, we have a great relationship. So I'm like, "No, when you're going to do it, let's do it right, or let's not do it at all, because we're just going to create crap. We're going to create bubble wrapped filled boxes because the team doesn't know." And I love his team. They're great. They just don't know. So when it comes, you don't let amateurs tweak master systems. And I talk about this all the time. It drives me bonkers.
Because then
Follow the system, become a master, learn from a master. A couple years down the road, let's have a chat. But until then, how about we just follow the masters who spend their life figuring this stuff out? And you just don't know. Go ahead, Brad. I get so passionate because they hurt themselves in the process.
It's fine. Because then what happens is they look back and they go, "Yeah, we tried that product, that system. It just didn't work in our business." It's like, it didn't work because it was run by amateurs, people who didn't really understand what they were doing.
Right. So when Collins talks about bullets and cannonballs as the testing, you got to make it a fair bullet.
Yeah.
Right. If you put a 45 caliber bullet in a 50 caliber rifle, it ain't going to work very well. Right. Like, it's like, that's just not how it works. So yeah, it drives me bonkers. So my thing is, and I go into, we do a lot of work with companies around talent reviews.
Yeah.
And I went into a company recently with a talent review, and the head of HR had some wonderful ideas. And I'm like, can I be really direct? You should probably undo what you did, because the changes you made decreased the value and increased the complexity. So I know you have good intentions. And so now, and after that was this one, I found a graceful way to help tweak it, and we will change most of it back. Not all, but I'm kind of creating rules in companies. When we implement these systems, if you want to change it, you talk to me. And again, I'm sounding tough about this, but I am. Because I see people dilute systems all the time, and they take the simplest. When Vern and I were working on scaling up, the amount of time that we spent on a box or a question you boggle your mind when we were tweaking questions or tweaking templates. It's an insane amount of debate on behind these things from people who spend an insane amount of time in the field using it. So I think, sorry, I just touched a button, Brad, but it's just, it just drives me bonkers. Don't tweak it until you're a master, and it takes many years to become a master. And that's what makes the one-page plan not work, or any system or tool not work.
And look, it goes without saying. I mean, it goes without saying that if you're doing nothing, you're not really going to build the business. You reduce the chance of building the business that you want. Okay, if you have a business plan, you're probably going to have a higher chance of building the business that you want. To our opening statement, right, around you being happy and good. And then if you have a one-page plan with that level of thinking behind it, you increase the chance. But then when you overlay a coach onto that and you get someone who is a domain expert, someone who's built thousands, literally thousands of business plans, and is just intuitively sensing every single aspect of where it's going, like that's when you increase the company value the most from planning.
You do. You have the biggest impact, especially when that person that built the plan has followed plans through quarter after quarter after quarter, and see an initial theoretical plan in a boardroom, and 5 years later see what plays out. And I think that's the biggest value people like you and I and my team bring, is that we see the theory iterated quarter after quarter after quarter to see what actually works in the end. Because the initial plans are often way off. You have to iterate and iterate to get the value out of them.
Yeah. So let's move to close. Why does the one-page plan work in a summary? Like what are we, where are we kind of landing on this?
I'll go first, then maybe you can do your version. Mine is that it's a document that captures our critical thinking about how we win and what we're going to do to march towards it. And it does it in a way where people can be highly accountable to making sure the work they do is completed and aligns to that fairly simple document to how we're going to win.
Yeah, I guess for me, it works. If I reverse engineer it, it works because after we've built the quarterly one-page plan, we've got clear alignment with everybody on what must be executed. And because it's reverse engineering, we get that because of the messiness that happens in the room to determine the right priorities or OKRs. And we get that because we've got real clarity on the strategy, how we're going to be different in the market, and the core values and the core purpose and the BHAG, all of the elements, and then the multitude of layers of depth underneath of that validate the strategy. So that's reverse engineered. But so we're basically aligned and in the right direction. So yes, it's a plan. Yes, it's on paper / software, but it's the powerful effects of that make the difference.
Right. So it's a simple but challenging tool to use because you really got to boil down your thinking into a way that it's easy for people to align to and make sure they spend their time on the most important stuff.
Very good.
Awesome. Good conversation. So, hey, thanks for listening today, listening to our passion around this tool that we both use a lot, helps clients. And there's different iterations of it in different forms and different theories, but the idea is getting people on the same page. This has been the Growth Whisperers with Kevin Lawrence up here in Vancouver, Canada, and Brad Giles down south in Perth, Australia. You can subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can get the video version at YouTube. Just search the Growth Whisperers. And you can catch both of us. We both got newsletters and sites with more information. And we're here also to help you implement these tools. Brad is evolutionpartners.com.au. And I am, and my team is at lawrenceandco.com. Have an awesome week. And we hope you continue to stay focused on the little things that matter most.